John Lennon, Sharon Tate, Tupac Shakur. Over the years, a long list of celebrities have met their ends at the hands of other people, and these famous faces very nearly joined them. John Lennon wasn't the only Beatle who was faced with a truly dangerous fan. On December 30th, 1999, George Harrison was confronted by a schizophrenic man named Michael Abram, who thought Harrison was a witch who had possessed Abram. Thinking God wanted him to kill Harrison, Abram invaded the musician's Oxfordshire mansion, armed with a knife and a stone sword he'd broken off a statue in Harrison's garden. Fortunately, Harrison stepped out of his bedroom and saw Abram downstairs. Hoping to confuse the intruder, the singer began shouting, "Hare Krishna," but the trick didn't work. Abram had his mind set on George, and he rushed up the stairs, ready to kill the pop star. Harrison was able to tackle Abram, and as the two battled for the knife, Harrison's wife Olivia smashed Abram over the head with a brass poker. Soon, all three were on the ground in a desperate fight for life. During the scrum, Harrison was stabbed in the chest, and he later described how he could hear his lung deflate. As he lay wounded, Olivia Harrison began swinging a table lamp at Abram, fending him off long enough for the police to arrive. After his arrest, Abram spent a few months in a mental hospital before he was released in 2002.
I've got a son who needs a father, so I have to stick around for him. Other than that, I can't think of much reason to be here.
Madonna is one of the most revered names in music history. She's dominated the charts for decades, while also expanding her repertoire and becoming an established actor. In 1995, though, her fame attracted the unwanted attention of a man named Robert Dewey Hoskins. Appearing in court a year later, Madonna recalled the series of disturbing events surrounding her interactions with Hoskins. In April 1995, Hoskins had climbed over the wall of Madonna's home and entered her property when she wasn't there. That time, her bodyguard chased him away. A day later, Hoskins approached the house again, speaking to Madonna's secretary via the intercom. In this conversation, he allegedly demanded to see Madonna, threatening to slice the singer's throat and kill everyone else in the house if she didn't come out. Madonna arrived home just after the incident, noticing a note left by Hoskins in which he proclaimed his love for her. In May of that year, Hoskins returned to the house and scaled over the wall. Reportedly, Hoskins threw himself at Madonna's bodyguard, who proceeded to shoot him. In court, Madonna said, "I feel incredibly disturbed that the man who repeatedly threatened my life is sitting across the room from me. I feel we are making his fantasies come true." Hoskins received a 10-year prison sentence for stalking the musician. In 1996, Jimmy Buffett released a song called Jamaica Mistaka, a bouncy little number about a guy who visits the tropical island and gets shot at by the police. Coming from the cheeseburger and paradise guy, this seems like a pretty unusual topic, but as it turns out, it was inspired by a real-life incident. Just a few months before releasing the song, Buffett was flying aboard an old World War II plane headed for Jamaica, hoping for a little rest and relaxation. Also on the plane were Chris Blackwell, the founder of Island Records, plus U2 lead singer Bono and Bono's wife and two young kids. Crazily enough, Jamaica authorities misidentified their craft as a drug smuggler's plane, so when it touched down, the cops opened fire. The trigger-happy gunmen shot around 100 bullets, forcing Bono and his family to dive for cover. Fortunately, nobody was hurt in the chaos, and the Jamaican authorities later apologized. But Bono didn't stick around long enough to hear anyone say they were sorry. When the gunfire stopped, the rocker and his family flew straight back to Florida, relieved to have escaped with their lives.
You know, what was going through your mind when the Jamaican government shot at your plane?
Ducking.
It isn't unusual for fans to become deeply invested in the lives of celebrities, but problems often arise when these parasocial relationships take a darker turn, and that's exactly what happened with Donette Knight, Michael Douglas, and Catherine Zeta-Jones. Between 2003 and 2004, Knight stalked and targeted Zeta-Jones, whom she had never met before. Knight was a big fan of Douglas, Zeta-Jones' husband, and became incensed when she read about a rumored cheating scandal involving Zeta-Jones in a tabloid magazine. Knight would send messages and calls to hotels where Zeta-Jones was staying, including a series of bone-chilling threats.
"When we finish with this expletive, she will not be this pretty-faced actress. You won't be able to recognize her in her casket."
Eventually, Knight was arrested for her threats. In a pre-trial hearing, Zeta-Jones said, "I've never in my life had anything or had anyone say anything to me so satanic. I can't even imagine how a sane human being could have these images locked in their brain. This will affect me for the rest of my life." In July 2005, Knight was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Trace Adkins has proven himself as both a country musician and actor, garnering praise for his achievements in both fields. Yet one scary incident back in 1994 nearly ended his career before it began. At the time, Adkins was married to his second wife, Julie Curtis. Adkins was drinking heavily during this period, eventually resulting in an altercation between him and Julie about it. She wanted him to leave the house, but he refused to go without his 2 children and told her to leave instead. Soon after, when he came out of the bathroom, Julia had a gun pointed at him. Adkins later admitted that he tried to grab the gun and threatened her. In his autobiography, he wrote, "She pulled the trigger and the bullet went through my left lung, through my heart, through my right lung and out the other side. It was what my hunting buddies and I call a kill shot." Adkins was airlifted to the hospital and survived the event. He decided not to press charges against Julie, though, as you might expect, the pair decided to divorce soon thereafter. Jackie Chan is a bona fide legend in martial arts cinema, having delivered a seemingly endless string of iconic action movies over the years.
Man, what the hell are you doing? I just being polite.
In 2012, however, Chan made headlines for another reason, when he revealed his long-standing feud with the Triads. Once described by the US Department of Justice as the Chinese Mafia, the Triads are a secret crime organization with ancient origins. According to comments that Chan made to the publication Southern People Weekly, his problems with the syndicate stem back many years, once almost resulting in him being shot. He said, "In the past, when they bullied me, I hid in the United States. They opened fire at me once I got off the airplane." Chan claimed that things became so bad that he started carrying a gun around with him for protection. That wasn't all, though. Chan also made the shocking claim that he once faced off against the gangs with his own personal arsenal of 2 guns and 6 grenades. These allegations caught the attention of the Hong Kong police. However, Chan told them that this alleged event occurred outside of the country, meaning that they were unable to follow up on it. Andy Warhol was one of the great creative minds of the 60s. At the time, everyone wanted to work with him, or at least be in his presence, and one of the people who dreamed of working with him was writer Valerie Solanas. Solanas tried in vain to have Warhol produce one of her plays. Instead, Warhol cast her in his film, I, a Man. Later, Solanas wrote the Scum Manifesto, intended for an organization she called the Society for Cutting Up Men, and sent it to Warhol. She wanted Warhol's assistance with the manuscript. However, Solanas also developed a fear that Warhol was about to steal her work. She soon began to threaten him. In June 1968, Solanas showed up at Warhol's apartment where he was meeting with art gallery owner Mario Amaya and opened fire on them. Amaya didn't experience any major injuries, but Warhol was wounded in multiple organs, including his stomach, lungs, and liver. He subsequently required a 2-month stay in hospital, undergoing multiple procedures, and wore a surgical corset for the remainder of his life. Solanas, meanwhile, handed herself over to the authorities hours after the incident. She pleaded guilty to assault charges and received a 3-year prison sentence. Singer-songwriter Joss Stone hit the big time in the 2000s, topping the charts and winning multiple awards thanks to her soulful and catchy music. This success also turned her into a recognizable public figure, especially in her home country of England. In 2011, however, Stone was nearly the victim of a sinister plot against her. 2 men, Kevin Liverpool and Junior Bradshaw, drove from Manchester to Devon, where Stone held a private residence. Liverpool and Bradshaw believed that the singer had £1 million stashed away in a safe, so they planned to steal the money, kill Stone, then dispose of her body in a river.
It's like they sat and just watched like way too many movies.
Liverpool and Bradshaw drove around Devon, trying to find Stone's house. Fortunately for Stone, residents reported the suspicious behavior to the police, who stopped the pair's car and discovered an array of weapons, as well as a written plan of how they would commit the crime. Liverpool and Bradshaw were arrested and received lengthy sentences. A lucky break for Stone, who was indeed at home on the day they planned to kill her.
I mean, really, what can you do but laugh? Really.
Marc Cohn achieved instant success with the release of his debut album in 1991. The record went platinum and produced a few of Cohn's most popular hits, including Walking in Memphis and Silver Thunderbird. In August 2005, Cohn probably wished he had been walking in Memphis rather than stationed in Denver, Colorado. Cohn and his band were inside their van in a parking garage when a man named Joseph Yakteen attempted to carjack them. Yakteen fired a shot that grazed driver Thomas Dube, then hit Cohn in his right temple. Both Dube and Cohn received medical assistance, but were released from the hospital the same day. Yakteen was apprehended by the authorities and received a 36-year prison sentence. Later, Cohn told Moments That Survive how lucky he was to be one of the few people who have survived a gunshot to the head. He said, "I was told that the caliber of the bullet along with the fact that it traveled through a windshield and grazed the driver's chin, contributed to slowing down the bullet sufficiently enough to cause it to lodge a centimeter short of my skull, nestled in just enough soft tissue to save my life. I never lost consciousness. In the 90s, the tennis world was stacked with talent, as players like Monica Seles and Steffi Graf competed to become number one, and in 1993, Seles had a lucky escape from a would-be killer, during one of her own matches no less. In April of that year, while playing in Hamburg, Germany, Seles was stabbed in the back by Günther Pasche, an obsessed fan of Graf. The stab wound went about half an inch into Seles' upper back, luckily avoiding her vital organs. The event traumatized Seles, however, who understandably stepped away from tennis for a period of time afterwards.
I never ever expected something like this to happen.
Taking into consideration a psychiatrist's testimony, Pasha received a suspended 2-year sentence for the offense, which outraged Seles. In a statement, she said, "What kind of message does this send to the world? Mr. Pasha has admitted that he stalked me, then he stabbed me once and attempted to stab me a second time. And now the court has said he does not have to go to jail for this premeditated crime." TV fans will recognize Brandon Call for 2 major roles, Hobie in the first season of Baywatch and J.T. Lambert in the sitcom Step by Step. Yet Call's stint on the latter show almost ended tragically 2 years before it ended. In September 1996, Call left Warner Brothers Studios, where he had been filming Step by Step, to return home. That's when he noticed a car following him, which eventually came extremely close to his bumper. Call didn't recognize the people in the other vehicle. He then tried to escape the trailing car, but eventually headed down a cul-de-sac and found himself directly in front of the other vehicle. As he tried to drive past the car, Call claimed that the driver of the vehicle, who was later identified as Tommy Eugene Lewis, fired several shots at him, hitting Call's arms in the process. Call received treatment at a medical facility for his injuries and made a full recovery. Lewis, who prosecutors argued had a long history of unprovoked violence, was convicted of attempted murder and spent 24 years in prison. He was released in 2021. For decades, Garrett Morris's appearances in shows like Saturday Night Live and The Jeffersons had audiences in stitches, yet one violent incident in 1994 was no laughing matter. In February 1994, Morris was held up on the streets of Los Angeles. According to Morris's recollection of events, 2 men approached him from behind and tried to rob him. After one grabbed Morris, he used his martial arts training to spin the man around. However, this prompted the man to fire his gun at Morris. The shot wreaked havoc on his intestines, requiring 10 operations and the use of a colostomy bag for 8 months after the incident. The name Miles Davis is practically synonymous with jazz. The legendary musician is one of the most important people in the history of the genre and left his indelible mark on it, as well as on music as a whole. In October 1969, though, Davis experienced a close shave that almost changed the trajectory of his life. Davis completed a gig at the Blue Coronet that night, then hopped into his car to drive his then-girlfriend, Marguerite Eskridge, home. When they parked outside Eskridge's home, another vehicle carrying 3 men stopped by them. One man jumped out and fired 5 times at Davis's car. Eskridge was unharmed, while Davis received a shot that grazed his hip. Years later, in Davis's autobiography, he revealed why he had been shot that night, writing, "I later found out that the reason I had been shot was because some black promoters in Brooklyn hadn't liked the fact that white promoters were getting all the bookings. When I played the Blue Coronet that night, they thought I was being an by not letting the black promoters do the booking." Dana Martin was already serving 2 life sentences in 2012 when he sent several letters to Justin Bieber, and he even got a Bieber tattoo on his leg while in prison. Unsurprisingly, Bieber never responded to the freaky fan mail, which made Martin a tad angry. He was also upset that Bieber was turning into a bad boy, and it didn't help that Martin wanted his 15 minutes of fame. Determined to teach Bieber a lesson, Martin convinced his cellmate, Mark Stake, to castrate and kill the singer in exchange for $50,000, a Ferrari, and a farm once owned by Michael J. Fox. So when Stake was released from his New Mexico prison, he teamed up with his nephew Tanner Ruane and struck out for New York. But before they reached Bieber, Martin wanted his hitmen to castrate and kill the 2 witnesses who'd helped put him behind bars. Fortunately, the killers made a wrong turn along the way and ended up in Canada, where Stake was arrested for violating his parole. After officials found a sketch of Bieber and some hedge clippers in Stake's car, the whole plot fell apart pretty quickly. Martin eventually pled guilty to 2 counts of attempted murder. In 2000, while struggling to hit the big times, 50 Cent was sitting in a car outside his grandmother's house in Queens, New York, when an assassin walked up to the vehicle and unloaded his gun. 9 bullets tore into the rapper's body, slamming into his leg, hip, arm, right hand, chest, and the left side of his face. After emptying his clip, the gunman managed to escape. Many suspect the attacker was Darrell Baum, a man who worked as Mike Tyson's bodyguard, though he was never arrested. Before Baum could ever be brought to justice, he was shot down, possibly in retaliation for going after Fitty. As for the rapper, it took 6 weeks before he could walk by himself and 5 months before he'd totally recovered. The attack also permanently altered his speech patterns, as one gunshot destroyed his mouth. In fact, a fragment of a bullet is still lodged in his tongue. As the rapper explained to Vanity Fair, doctors didn't remove the bullet as it would have further damaged his nerves, but that injury has also given him a voice like no one else in hip-hop. Headlined by the Rolling Stones, the Altamont Speedway Free Festival in 1969 featured some of the biggest bands of the 60s. Unfortunately, the concert wasn't exactly peaceful, as the Stones had hired the Hells Angel Motorcycle Club to provide security. According to some accounts, the biker gang was given $500 in free beer to whack concertgoers with pool cues. By the end of the night, 4 people were dead, including 18-year-old Meredith Hunter. After getting roughed up by the Angels, Hunter pulled a gun, only to find himself on the wrong end of a biker's knife. Captured on film, the stabbing was the death knell for the free-loving 1960s, and on top of that, it almost got Mick Jagger killed. Furious about how things had gone down, Jagger refused to ever use the Hells Angels for security again. This didn't sit well with the biker gang, and according to ex-FBI agent Mark Young, they decided to get some satisfaction by killing the British rock star. Allegedly, they planned on sailing out to Jagger's Long Island home, avoiding security by sneaking up from the ocean and creeping into his backyard. Things didn't pan out according to their plans though, as a storm capsized their boat, sending the Angels into the sea. One evening in 1971, Elvis Presley found himself in a tricky situation involving a pistol-packing assassin named Alice Cooper. The shock rocker was hanging out with Liza Minnelli, Chubby Checker, and Linda Lovelace when they were all notified that Presley wanted to meet them. The group was ushered into the King's Vegas apartment. After a few pleasantries, Presley invited Cooper into his kitchen, and that's when Presley handed his new buddy a .38 caliber pistol. Wanting to show off his martial arts prowess, Presley ordered Cooper to point the gun straight at him. As the rocker trained the snub-nosed pistol at Presley, a little voice appeared in his head.
A little devil here on my shoulder says, shoot him.
Fortunately, the good angel on Cooper's other shoulder won the day. Moments later, Presley disarmed the rocker and put Cooper on the ground. As he removed his foot from Cooper's throat, he continued chatting like nothing strange had just happened. Of course, Cooper was pretty freaked out, describing the whole evening as weird.
There's 2 things you need to know. I'm the king, and number 2 is look out, man!
In 1976, Jamaica was divided between 2 political parties, the Liberal People's National Party, or PNP, headed by Prime Minister Michael Manley, and the right-wing Jamaican Labour Party, or JLP, led by Edward Seaga. Fearing Manley was a communist, the United States government armed the JLP, which led to street battles between gangsters allied with both groups. The police also got involved, and soon hundreds of people were dead. At about this time, the PNP asked Bob Marley if he wanted to do a concert in Jamaica. They promised it wouldn't be a political event, but would rather be focused on uniting all of Jamaica. Marley agreed to perform, but immediately afterward, Manley moved the national elections to be held shortly after the concert, making it appear that Marley was endorsing Manley by performing so close to Election Day in a PNP event. This turn of events made someone incredibly angry, and on December 3, 1976, at least 3 gunmen stormed Marley's home. They opened fire with machine guns, hitting the singer in the arm and wounding his wife and manager. While the assassins escaped, everyone survived the attack. 2 days later, Marley went on stage as scheduled. He performed for 90 minutes and even showed off his bandaged wounds. As one of the most famous pop stars of the 90s, Victoria Posh Spice Beckham has had plenty of glitz and glamour in her life, but she's also been the victim of multiple criminal schemes. For example, in January 2000, there was a plot to kidnap her and her 8-month-old son, Brooklyn. Fortunately, the Beckhams were saved in the nick of time, although the crooks managed to escape as well. Just 2 years later, 5 more people were arrested for attempting to kidnap Beckham, although there's a bit of debate surrounding the story. As it turns out, the plot was exposed after the News of the World paid a hefty sum to a convicted crook, who then ratted out the alleged kidnappers. Thanks to this revelation, the 5 people in custody were released. But perhaps the scariest incident occurred in March 2000. While rehearsing for a Spice Girls performance, Beckham was hustled to safety after a red dot suddenly appeared on her chest. Shortly afterward, a propped open door was discovered, and it was theorized that a sniper had been preparing to take a shot. In December 1971, Frank Zappa was performing at a Swiss casino when someone shot off a flare gun, burning the place to the ground, an event that inspired the Deep Purple song Smoke on the Water. Just a few days later, Zappa was playing at London's Rainbow Theatre when a 24-year-old man named Trevor Charles Howell charged the musician and pushed him off the stage. Howell was upset because his girlfriend had a crush on Zappa. The rocker took a 15-foot dive into a concrete orchestra pit, a fall that fractured his ankle and leg, broke a rib, paralyzed an arm, pulverized his larynx, and put a hole in his head. Luckily, Zappa survived, but he was stuck in a wheelchair for nearly a year. When he finally got out, one of his legs was shorter than the other, resulting in chronic back pain. The smashed-up larynx possibly affected Zappa's singing voice, making it much deeper. The whole incident encouraged him to keep a bodyguard by his side at all times. In the 90s, a pest control worker named Ricardo Lopez was obsessed with Icelandic musician Bjork. He created art in her honor and detailed in his diary about how he wanted to become her best friend. He also wrote down his thoughts about killing himself and others. No deranged fantasy lasts forever, and in 1996, the 21-year-old Lopez was shocked to learn that Bjork was in a relationship with the English musician Goldie. Lopez was incensed that his beloved singer was dating, so he then began working on a plan to punish her. The plan was to mail a bomb from his Florida home to Bjork's London residence. On September 12, 1996, Lopez put his explosive package in the mail. Then, after painting his face with red, green, and black paint, he shot himself on camera as Bjork music played in the background. Authorities found his body days later, and the bomb was stopped before it arrived at Bjork's doorstep. If you or someone you know is dealing with domestic abuse, you can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. You can also find more information, resources, and support at their website,